Thank you all again for making the time to join us. Uh, So we just want to welcome everyone to February's Ask Me Anything event, which is around building political bank, Black women in Democratic fundraising. First of all, I want to thank Representative Aisha Dew, Shannon Arthur, and Rosetta Okohson for sharing their expertise with us. So please show them some love in the chat. It's great to see both new and familiar faces as we dig into the dynamics of fundraising and these incredible Black leaders that are helping us shape the field. I'm Akilah Inslee, a fellow fundraising professional and your moderator for today's panel. As we get settled in, please drop a quick intro into the chat, share your name, your pronouns, whichever you'd like, and just a little bit about yourself, why you're here, and where you're going to be joining us from. And before we dive in, we want to take a moment to introduce the National Democratic Training Committee. NDTC is committed to helping Democrats win elections and build lasting power in our communities across the country. Through free tools and many trainings, they empower every Democrat. Hello, Fran. Thank you so much for dropping that in. Hello, Michelle. And we are very grateful for the work that they do. No matter their background, zip code, or resources, NTDC is going to work with them to make sure that they are standing up and leading. Thank you so much, Crystal, for joining us from Fayetteville. The work that they do is paramount. I think we know now more than ever, it is essential that we have good people doing quality work, and we have good people that are going to be engaging. So thank you for putting this training together. And now a few quick housekeeping things before we get started. We ask that everyone be present and engaging. Hello, Sujan, thank you, and Nakona. We want everyone to be respectful of those that are speaking. If you have thoughts, please do share them in the chat. This is an open space to learn, share, and grow with one another. We do have closed captioning available. So live captions are available. Just click live transcript at the bottom of your screen and show subtitles if that's needed for you. And then during our question answer period, we're going to be using a Q&A box for all of your audience questions throughout the discussion. So please drop your questions there so that we can make sure that we engage with them. Damon Drew, who is going to be my pilot for this today, is going to be helping us manage a lot of those aspects and logistics. So we'll make sure to get through as many questions as possible. For resources, Damon's going to be sharing some of those chats throughout, and you can also access it for free at traindemocrats.org. All you have to do is make a free account there to access all of those amazing resources. Thank you, Haley from Las Vegas. Good morning to you. And then are there any quick questions before we start to dive in? Okay. Our AMA series is all about bringing together Democratic leaders for candid conversations on key campaign topics. So you're leaving here with real actionable insight from experts, those of us who have done this for a long time, and we're here to reassure you that this is something that you also can engage in and learn from us. And today's theme, which is building political bank, Black women in Democratic fundraising, is an especially important topic that we want to discuss. So let's meet our experts. Since we're talking about building political bank, I'd love for each of you to please introduce yourselves. If we can start with what your experience has been when it's come to fundraising, being a Black woman in this space, and if we could please start with Representative Aisha Dew.
Hi there. So I am Representative Aisha Dew, House District 107 in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, North Carolina, right in the heart of the city and right in the heart of the county. So I have been doing this political work now for really the better part of 20 years. I was the National Political Director at Higher Heights, and my friend Shannon is on from Higher Heights. And actually, I know all of our panelists today through this work, including Rosetta. from her phenomenal candidate work. And so I've worked with over about like 200 candidates between Vote Pro Choice, Higher Heights for America, and then just my own political consulting work, as well as my company is the Dew Group, and then also through being first vice chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party and chair of the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party when we hosted the convention for the re-election campaign of President Barack Obama. So I've been doing this work and just really glad to be here with phenomenal people.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. Shannon Arthur, if we could hear from you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. As she already stated, Shannon Arthur. I hail from the great state currently of Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm a Brooklyn, New York native. So if anyone's in Brooklyn, Brooklyn in the house. I currently work at Higher Heights as the Institutional Development Associate. Okay, sorry. I currently work at Higher Heights as institutional development vice president. I enjoy this work. I have the distinct pleasure of exclusively working with Black women and Black women candidates and for Black women. It has been a passion of mine. I started this work doing and working for Black women such as Stacey Abrams during her 2018 gubernatorial campaign, then went on to work for Warnock and did that mind-boggling Amazon race type of campaign. And it was a lot of fun as a call time manager. And then worked at a stint at the DNC and worked at Fair Fight, and then brought me here to Higher Heights, where I get to work with the membership apparatus of our organization that's built for by Black women to propel Black women's political leadership. So thank you so much again for having me.
Absolutely. And last but not least, we saved the best for last. Rosetta Okohson, a bit about you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Akila. Hey, y'all, Rosetta Okohson, she, her, hers. I live in the best baseball town across the country, St. Louis, Missouri. I think about this work in a real different way and come from it as an angle of growing up in a family that, we didn't play soccer on the weekend. We knocked doors and showed up for candidates that were running for office, whether it was school board or, whether it was someone that was happening, something that was happening local in our community. And so, growing up in a family that decided that this is what we cared about, like they decided that I was a Cardinals fan, has just really been a part of how I kind of look at this work. I actually got my fundraising experience in student council. So my very first fundraiser, I like to tell people, this was at the time when Hanson, I'm dating myself, was popular, and Mbop was a terrible song that was playing. And so we were trying to raise $2,500 for our prom, to pay for prom. And so instead of asking people, which we're going to talk a lot about today, about how to ask for dollars, what that sounds like, instead of asking people, we annoyed people into giving. So we played Mbop on repeat over and over and over again until we raised all of those dollars. It took us 3 days, over 3 lunch periods, an hour and a half each day. But that was my jump into this fundraising work. And since then, I've taken the opportunity to show up for Black women candidates, for candidates that have run for the very first time, for candidates that have not had the structure that they have needed in order to be successful. It's really easy for people who come from means to ask for funds. It's really difficult to figure that out and feel vulnerable enough to be able to do that. And so I'm so grateful to be able to do that work. I'm so grateful to have worked on the campaign and continue to work on the campaign to elect the first Black woman mayor in the city of St. Louis, Tashara O. Jones. And just want to bring that knowledge to y'all. So please, I hope you're coming with some questions, because this is about you walking away and feeling confident in this, so that there can be more people that look like us that run for these offices, because we know that we're the ones to fix these problems. Thank you all so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies. So grateful to have your leadership here. And just really quickly, again, for those that have just joined, my name is Akila Inslee, fundraising professional and managing director of Invictus Strategy Group. So we are going to dig right in with some amazing fundraising questions. I do ask panelists that you please keep your answers to 2 minutes, so we can just make sure to keep this thing rolling. So fundraising is one of the most persistent challenges for candidates. Yet Black candidates and political operatives often face an added burden of proving their own viability to donors, as well as stakeholders in the space. Given these realities, what proactive steps can campaigns take in the early stages to build a strong fundraising foundation? and navigate these structural barriers effectively. If we could start with Shannon.
Ooh, off the gate, me. Okay.
Surprise.
For me, it starts with a candidate establish their credibility. We already know that most Black candidates or Black women candidates also come with an entire resume of all the things they've done, the things they're a part of, what they do, Divine Nine, church, all the things. And we already know that they're distinct leaders, but the public doesn't know you, right? So establishing what is your why is really, really fundamental to you and your fundraising, because that one will keep you going because you will get a lot of hangups and a lot of people not answering your calls. But I'll also remind people why you're in the game and why you're doing this for them and why you're choosing to serve. And then also starting a love list, where your love list is usually your first step, where you put a list of people who are in your community. Are you a part of Divine Nine? Did you go to an HBCU? Do you a part of alumni service? Showing you writing that down and posing your connectors will show that you already have a lot of people backing you already. And you'll already have a lot of people establishing that you've done this job before. Those people will be your supporters, they'll be your hosts, they'll be the ones to back you if anything happens. And then you start there, build their community, and then go advance outward.
Absolutely. I love that you call what we would traditionally in some places call Rolodexing the love list. That just, I feel like it brings something to it. So Representative Dew, your thoughts on this question?
I'll bring up something that's a little bit different with all of you amazing fundraisers on the call. And I love Shannon the use of the love list as well. So I think when you look at that community, a part of what happens throughout your fundraising journey, right, is that you just need to stay in touch with folks. It feels like you're never not on the phone, right? And then not only that, as you become elected, then you have your constituent work, and that ends up being a part of your broader fundraising base as well, right? So making sure that you stay responsive as you're leading with your community, and don't forget that they're there, and that they're the ones who got you there, right? And so for me, our terms are only 2 years, and so that means that the work starts basically as soon as election day was over, even though I think all of us had to take a breather after this last presidential cycle. But January 1, it was back on it, right? Making calls for us, we have to raise our caucus dues, right? And I would say engage a really great fundraising professional to help you with that. As a professional myself, my friends at Emily's List and Lillian's List all told me, they were like, get a campaign professional. Just because you are one doesn't mean you can do it for yourself. And they were absolutely right.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Everyone here, we're going to now pivot to Rosetta, but one of the key things I think is the continuity of engagement. You have to keep talking to people. You can't just show up out of nowhere and then talk to people you haven't talked to in 25 years and expect they're just going to be responsive to you. So please know that those of you that want to work in this field, a lot of this is just continually building relationships. Rosetta.
Yeah, Aisha and Shannon, you both lifted up some things that I know we certainly tell other candidates, but I think there's a mindset change that has to happen that we have to talk about first. The idea that we are asking someone for help is something, especially for Black women, that is difficult, right? We are painted in this way where it's not cool, it's not okay for us to ask other people for help or admit that we need support in doing something because of this strong Black woman image that a lot of people like to portray and move into the space. And what I am trying to do in 2025 and moving forward is move into my soft life, right? So that means, hey, listen, I can't do all these things, right? And when I'm working with candidates who are also struggling to figure out the best way to be vulnerable enough, but while also still being seen as a leader, you got to thread that needle. You have to be honest about, listen, I can't do this by myself. I can only have or accept $2,600 per person per cycle until it resets. I'm going to need a lot of people that are going to come in to be able to do this work with me. And so I need you all to be on board. And I think everything that you all said, plus one, right? Yes, keep in touch and talk to those people so that every call doesn't feel transactional, but also you have to be okay with asking for help and be comfortable that that is something that's going to have to continue to happen. And that is a mindset shift that has to happen for any candidate, especially Black women, as they are deciding to jump into this. You need the funds. One of our clients has said this, and now we use it pretty frequently. We didn't choose capitalism, but capitalism chose us. Okay, we got to pay for these things. Postage is not going to pay for itself. The TV ad's not going to pay for itself. The mail is not going to pay for itself, right? So you need funds to be able to do that. The staff that have working their butts off deserve to be paid a living wage because that's what we care about. So that means that we have to make sure that those funds are included into our campaign budget, which means we have to ask, and closed mouths don't get fed. Everybody's heard that. Everybody knows that, right? So if you don't ask for what you need, then you're not going to get what you need.
Absolutely. Thank you all for that. And just as a caveat, taking some of these proactive steps towards kind of setting up a solid foundation, with kind of building this and changing mindset, are there any real life examples, or if one or two of you that have had kind of working with candidates through this and how you overcame some of these structural barriers that we could share? Oh, I see heads nodding. Okay, Rosetta.
Yeah, I already told you guys, and this is live, so it's fine. And Tashara and I have been talking about this from jump. I met Tashara at a NARA Pro-Choice Missouri event in 2015. And I walked up to her, and after I heard her speak, I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're dope! Like, I want to work on your campaign." I was like, "Hey, do you do call time?" And her response to me was, "What's call time?" Right? She had been an incumbent. She'd run for other offices. She'd never done call time. Like, she'd never done this. So introduction into how we change the mindset, how we build political power, how we stay fresh and make sure that our ideas and messaging can get out is really honest. And some of these like jargon words that we in the political space tend to use, some regular folks that have never run for office have no idea what that is. They don't know what dialing for dollars is. They don't know what call time is. They don't know what a call time list is. They haven't used NGP van. Like there's some of these things that we have to just have a conversation. But sometimes it requires you to just ask an open-ended question. How are you fundraising? What's your fundraising strategy? What's your plan? And now we have all these resources. NDTC has a lot of resources about how to build a campaign plan that exists, and so these things are available on Al Gore's internet here now. But this wasn't the case always, right? We have to start with some of those questions.
Absolutely. And Shannon, I saw your face light up when I said that. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I started fundraising with Warnock. So you would think that a Baptist preacher at Ebenezer Baptist Church would know how to ask people for money. And that was not the case. I actually was brought on because there was a needed to have a cultural conversation, that there was a candidate who was a Black man who was running in a jungle primary and no one was taking him seriously. And he had a hard time asking for money outside of, his work duties, outside of the church. And we had to sit down and say, this is why you're asking. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And look, I'm ringing the alarm. That's him calling me right now saying, why are you talking about me? But it's hard. It's a cultural barrier for people to be able to ask for money. And if you think they should be skilled at this, they're not, because it's a different ask, and it's a different conversation. And it's harder. It's a lot harder. And there's a lot of people that are going to tell you no. And Rosetta is correct. The no and the why and changing your mindset is a fundamental piece of this entire thing. I was just shocked that Warnock didn't know how to ask for money. Because I was like, I thought we were pros at this.
Right.
There you go. Like, even though you think your candidate might know, no assumptions should be held. And then sometimes, even more so, it is so important for our candidates to have Black staff to speak and advocate for them when it comes to whatever cultural barriers there might be, whatever cultural blind spots a campaign might have. When I got onto the campaign, we didn't even do an HBCU fundraiser yet. And it was crazy because this man went to Morehouse. It's right down the block. So stuff like that is why, it's really important to have trainees of color also working with candidates of color so that we can speak to their existence and uplift any barriers or issues that they might have.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, which actually leads us right into our next question, which I hope you all are fine. I'm going to add just a little something to this question to just kind of tie into that representation piece. So in your experience, what are the most common strategic missteps that campaigns make when it comes to prioritizing fundraising tactics and revenue streams? And then also building and sustaining meaningful donor engagement. And finally, as a Black fundraising professional, how is it that you navigate working with other counterparts, white or other, and how does that impact your overall engagement? Because I know sometimes for us, we're brought in as the only, or you may be there and you're really kind of fighting for your life while doing a really great job. And it's just a bit of a tug and pull. So would really love your insight on those three pieces. And we are going to start with Representative Dew.
So I want to go back to the last question just a little bit as well. Even as a manager, even when I've had a call time manager, sometimes as the campaign manager or even consultant, I've just had to sit with the candidate to do call time because they will run circles around some call time managers. The next thing next thing you know, it's not actually happening. So I don't even have to do anything. I don't have to manage call time, but just like physically being present, be it Zoom or whatever, makes a difference. As far as working with our other colleagues, I'll say this from the perspective of working with Vote Pro Choice and Higher Heights. All I can say is I miss me. I just miss me so much. And I'm sure that my former boss, Ebony and Glenda, are tired of hearing from me on a daily basis. But having some of our partner organizations actually uh, engage in the conversation really matters. I have so
Mhm.
many Black consultants, and this is what happens with Black consultants. Number one, they never know what we do. They never do. We've had to push so hard to get Black consultants on some of these races, and then then we have to be there to support them, right? To make sure. And I would say Higher Heights, Collective PAC, Vote Pro Choice, some of the Black-led organizations and or some of the smaller organizations are really going to be the best supports
Mhm.
as far as, okay, well, we need to listen to this person. I still get calls from from colleagues to kind of help navigate what that looks like. So really working in community. I mean, the fact that, we all know each other matters. Rosetta is in a sweet spot with Tashara. I'm gonna just say that because she runs everything. But that's not the case for most of us, right? We're usually coming in as a part of a broader team of people who do not want to um, they don't understand really the Black community, and then don't necessarily want to engage in a way that makes sense. So I would just say lean in on partners, lean in on partners.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Shannon, if you could share your thoughts and then also I'm kind of bringing it back, what are some of the tactics that you would prioritize so we don't necessarily have those missteps? And how are we maintaining and sustaining meaningful donor engagement?
Tactics.
The fun stuff.
The fun things. Um, I think for me, it's some of the biggest I see the like strategic mess ups or missteps, I would say is that the art of a follow-up and the follow-up. Your follow-up should just be as engaging as your introduction.
Mhm.
Your the way you deal with people they will always remember it. Do not forget a thank you note. Like to your host committee, to your people, to the donors, it takes nothing to do with a big mass thank you email, but people will appreciate the thank you. You'd be
Mhm.
surprised how many times I've just been told, I remember you sent me a little postcard that said thank you for the campaign was over. And I just said thank you for being with me. And they have followed me to another race, another candidate. They support my work and the candidates that I do because they know that I have like backing to people and I support them. And as for like sustaining meaningful donor engagement, it is about finding out what your donors care about and making sure your donors are aligned with your candidate, your policy points, what your organization believes in. That will keep them coming back. It is so rare, so often you'll see people just throwing out money sometimes. And it's like, I'm just gonna hit this one and this one and this one, and then you can't reach them ever again. Well, because 9 times 10, they weren't even aligned with you to begin with. Um, so it's just important to have donors who really believe in the fundamental work that you're doing both long-term and now. For example, most Black women who are currently serving in the House, currently serving in Congress, have served at the state side. I'm pretty sure most of the local leaders, their donors have followed them over now to Congress. Why? Because they have followed up, they stayed connected, they stayed engaged, and most importantly, they believe in them and the work that they do because they are morally aligned.
Mhm. Absolutely. Rosetta, your thoughts?
Yeah. I'm gonna do this in steps because people are here to learn. So take out your pen and paper. I got 6 steps for you. Be organized. Call time requires you to have all of the things in one place, whether that's a spreadsheet or you pay for fancy NGP van or whatever the campaign is using to be able to organize, you got to be organized, and that has to be done before you get there. 2, for every hour of calls that you're planning to make, an hour of prep is required. You have to be prepared. The phone number should be present. The email should be present. The bios for the person that's there. Whoever, if you're staffing, like when I staff a call time, I have to know the person. I know what Tashara needs to hear before she's ready to call someone. That's my job. My job is to know that piece. What's the information that she needs to know about this person so that she feels comfortable making this call and that it will go the way that we need it to go. Part of that research is part 3. Look at the trends. The person that you're looking for that's on your donor list, why do they give? Do they give to other organizations? Do they give outside of this? What do they care about? And Shannon touched on this in what she just said. You have to know why the person might care. Does it parlay to the office that you're running for? Does it make sense for this person to do they share this value with you? Because if they don't, then maybe they'll give one time, maybe they'll throw something your way, but it won't be meaningful. And then you have to make the hard ask, right? You have to ask for what you need. If you don't ask for what you need, you're not going to get it. You have to tell them what it's for. People don't know what money is spent on campaigns. It's kind of like a little black box. Like, what are we buying? What am I spending money on? You got to make sure that's a part of it. 5, you got to follow up and you got to make it easy for the donor to be able to get it. So either that's an ActBlue link, if you want to use that tool, or immediately mail out an envelope for someone to send a check back to the campaign. Tell them how they can get the money to you quickly. If you wait a week, if you forget about it, if it falls off, their impression is like you just didn't care, right? You didn't care to follow through. So are you going to do that when you get into this role? Especially when people are donors and have the ability to vote for you, you got to make sure that that follow through is there. And then last but not least, and everyone else has also said this, but you have to say thank you. Gratitude goes a long way. You can't go back and ask someone for money if you didn't bother to say thank you for the time, energy, the effort that they put into it before. And thank yous need to be prompt. Those are the 6 things that I have to share.
No, that's fantastic. Those are excellent
So quick, just
steps.
to add on that, a donor, just what you said, like the thank yous and the touches, you need to contact a donor at least 3 times, usually before you get a yes. For Black women candidates, it's 5 times before they even get a yes. For white men candidates, it's usually twice. And for Black men, it's usually 3. So just think about, as you're dealing with your candidates, how those barriers are already present. You need to be on people, touching people constantly. And the thank you does count as a touch, phone call, but always have more than one way for people to communicate and people to get to you also.
Absolutely. Thank you goes a long way. A thank you, if you run, can, elevate you to another level, keeping in touch with people. And Rosetta, those steps actually take us directly into our 3rd question. So you were spot on with that, which is, what are the key elements for a successful direct donor ask? And how can we as fundraisers increase their chances of securing a yes? So Rosetta, Shannon, I think both of you really kind of gave us kind of some key pieces there. So when looking at the alignment of how many asks we have to make, how can we best assist in training staff, and also getting these candidates ready, right? Because they're going to think that this is going to potentially fall out of the sky, but no, we have to keep calling them. They're on your follow-up list because they're still a soft pledge. We have to get them to close. We have to get you to continue making that hard ask. So how do we increase those chances? And how do we also leverage small dollar online fundraising, which of course requires a very different approach than traditional major donor asks? And how can you tailor, how can we help Black women fundraisers and candidates tailor their strategy to inspire and convert grassroots donors effectively? So that's a bit of a mouthful, and we're going to start with Rosetta.
Yeah, happy to jump right back in. I think I think this is twofold. When you are asking for money for a campaign, there's a difference between inviting someone to an event where they can attend, and there's a difference between just asking someone to donate and give a large dollar amount.
Mhm.
Sometimes the conversations and the kinds of donors, and as you're organizing your list of people who you're talking to, you have to think about what does the dollar amount translate to. If I take the 3 people that I know will say yes to me, these are my list of love. As Shannon said earlier, if I think about those folks, the first one is my husband. My husband's going to say yes because he knows what he signed up for. My brother is going to say yes to me because I've been talking him into things for the last 35 years, and my mom is my biggest cheerleader. Once you get outside of the bubble of people that are comfortable, you have to think about why they might be interested. Are they an enemy of your opponent? Are they someone who wants to be able to have influence and be able to leverage this relationship to something further? Are they someone that is just curious to be engaged in the political process? I think you have to understand who you're having a conversation. And so that brings it back to the research that I was talking about before, of making sure you know who you're asking and what they might care about. And I know it's difficult. It's difficult to call someone, they don't respond to your call. It's difficult to reach out and not get them to be engaged. But also, like, you got to let that roll off your shoulders as a candidate, especially if you're a Black woman candidate. Like, yes, the no is fine, but we're going to come back. Persistence is key here, and part of that is just building an outer shell that doesn't let that part of the non-commitment be the thing that's driving and turn you off from fundraising completely. You have to be able to go and do that. You have to be able to advocate for the work. And they are not paying you. They're not giving money to you directly. They are investing in your dreams and your vision and the work that you are trying to do. And so you've got to be comfortable making that pitch. The second thing that I have to say is it's okay for people to say no, and candidates are going to have to be okay with hearing the no. A no is a complete sentence. We hear that used in a lot of different phrases. It works here too. No is a complete sentence. And if that, for every person that says no, there's someone out there that's waiting to hear from you that wants to invest in this. So it's totally okay to be able to use that, use the low dollar, ask people to donate and give multi-month, give for the next year, give $25 to my campaign. There's a lot of tools to be able to do that. And we can talk about those certainly in the chat, but I think just be persistent, advocate for what you need. And nobody does that better than Black women.
I think in this case, we have to remember that closed mouths don't get fed. We've said that already. And, with this, it is an investment. And the more you can see it that way as a fundraiser or an emerging fundraiser or a woman candidate, we do this, we fight for our communities every day. This is an opportunity for us to fight for ourselves and bringing something quality to the table that we can then elevate to help everyone. So I think that that's a strong mindset. So thank you for that, Rosetta. Representative Dew, your thoughts on this question?
Um, just to piggyback on what Rosetta said, you have to tailor the message to your audience, right? I've had a couple different scripts. One has helped me break the supermajority from North Carolina. That works in state, that works out of state. To my list of love, I need to pay my caucus dues so we can help save democracy. We can say that in the love list and just be like, listen, this is what it looks like. We still, even though I was actually in a non-competitive race, right? Um, I still did call time, and I'm still doing call time. I just ran for DNC vice chair. It was like, help us to win the DNC. I have a list of consistently strong Black donors that are a national list. So that just looks like a different list where they really could care less, except for the fact that we could break the supermajority or get more votes here, right? So sometimes it's simple, sometimes it's a little bit more complicated, but it's definitely, you have to be prepared. You need to know who you're talking to, what the ask looks like. And I saw someone in the chat say what your shared values are for that particular person and for that particular list.
Absolutely. And Shannon, your thoughts?
I would build upon this and say a no now is not a no forever. The political landscape changes constantly. If you have, by tailoring your messaging to meet the moment, to meet that overall connects with your overall mission is very, very important. There could be something that's happening and the political landscape can be dead. And then you have a Dobbs decision. And all of a sudden now everyone's pro-choice and you are a pro-choice candidate. You can fundraise and tailor your messaging around that, right? Because people say no right now, we don't know why they're saying no. We don't know. It's, grandma's sick, kids got tennis lessons, whatever it is. money is different, right? And so people have to think about the value you are adding to their life before they take away something from their pockets. Um, so that's one thing. Next is I'm going through the chat because people are asking really good questions. Asking 5 times is not so much outright 5 times, but 5 touches. Think about, okay, the first time they tell you no, I don't know really know about you. Great, no problem. Call them back after, give them about 2 weeks. Call, hey, I just want to have a conversation. I just want to talk. Maybe the first time you talk to them, you're not even asking for money. The first time you're just having a conversation about what's happening in the community and why you care and why you're running, right? Then you can say, I have an event coming up. That's another touch. I would love for you to come and hear me speak and be around like minds and talk to me in person and have a conversation. Events don't have to be expensive, especially for small root dollars. $5 to, meet you is easy. It's a very easy ask, right? And then you also tell people what that $5 goes to. Every $5 you get a campaign t-shirt, or the $5 you give helps pay for lunch for an organizer, right? Like, be very specific on what this money is going to so that people know that you're not just wasting their dollars on ads or anything they feel is wasted, right? Asking also for high dollar money is relative to every race, which is also relative for every cause, right? So here at Higher Heights, a high dollar ask is starts at $83.33. That is a monthly gift that we're asking. $83.33. By the end of the year, you've given me $1,000. It is your political savings bank. And understand that a lot of people don't know about political giving the way they do charitable giving, right? It's a long-term build-in process that all requires education, not just for the candidate, but also for the universe you're asking for, and patience. Lots and lots of patience. But when it comes to some tactics around small dollar fundraising versus traditional major donor, just keep it low, keep it approachable, keep it accessible, right? Think about when you're hosting events, how accessible the space you're in, whether it be in person or virtual. Like, for example, we should have closed captioning on this event, right? So that people who are with disabilities can be able to see this. That alone will get me $5 from a person because that's a certain level of consideration, right? Think about when you're doing small dollar fundraising is that you think about your kitchen table talk that you're having with your mama and your daddy, right? Like, those are your people. Your friends at the barbershop, the people who do your nails, like those are the people who are giving you the $5 consistently every month, like clockwork, if not every 2 weeks. They have now built you into their pay schedule. That is something that is more important than someone who drops me $5,000 and walks away, because that $5 person will knock a door, they will make a phone call, they will show up, they will buy a t-shirt, they'll get their church to recruit for you. $5 may seem like small, but it grows so quickly in time, talent, and treasure. And also remember that people also don't just have money to give, they have a lot of other tools that they can give you that will go into like in kind, and then we're on a whole nother playing field. But yeah.
No, that was absolutely fantastic. With grassroots, I always tell folks your baseline budget is not always built by people giving you $1,000 in max out gifts. It's those contributors that are literally giving you $5, $10, $15 every month throughout the duration of your campaign. Those people are going to give faithfully. Those folks also convert to your volunteers. Those are going to be your canvassers. Those are the people that are bringing, food to the office. Those are the old women that are going to come in and they're going to lick stamps, or not, hopefully not lick stamps, but stuff envelopes and make sure that things are going out. We don't want anybody sick. But those are the people that you can constantly go to. So it's really, really critical that you leverage them, and that every dollar that comes in, every person that gives, is treated with the same equity and respect that you treat those max out donors. It's so imperative, and it goes such a long way. Really quickly, we would like to take a screenshot before we start Q&A. And thank you, ladies, so far. This has been amazing. So if everyone can give us their best smile, we are going to do a quick countdown. Damon, I will let you run with that. And then we will get into some of these amazing questions that we have that are flowing through the chat. So please keep them coming.
Thank you, everyone. If you want to participate in the picture, go ahead and give me a big smile and hold it. 3, 2, 1. And I'll take one more. Thanks, everybody.
Amazing. Thank you all. Of course, participation is key. So we're going to start digging in now to some of our questions. So Damon, if you wouldn't mind popping up that Q&A box for me, I will start running through those questions. We're going to do our due diligence to get through every single question. So for my panelists, this is going to be a quick round robin. Some of these questions we've answered, but for some of these, I think that they are really important. So Damon, how do I see those questions?
Give me 1 second, send them over now.
No worries, I appreciate you. And Michelle, I love that we're starting young. I love to see little ones, get them started and let's get it going. So important. So our first question, which is a critical question that I think we've started addressing, but how do we work through a no and not leave defeated and understand we got to come back because it's a no for now, not a no always. If we can just dig a little bit more into that, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I'll take the first stab real quick, if y'all don't
Okay.
mind. I think working your way to a no or working through a no, you got to make sure you lay the foundation, right? How you're introducing yourself, how you're connected with this person needs to be a part of that conversation. If I call Aisha, not Aisha, I know you know me, but if I call Aisha and she doesn't know me and I'm like, Aisha, listen, I'm running for county dog catcher. I need $50. You got me? That probably is not going to go over as well as me leading into I'm running for office for the very first time. I'm super excited to champion making sure that our pet population has what it needs, and I want to change this office. Would you like to support me in this cause? Right? Those two sounded very differently, right? I think you have to think about how you go about the no, and it's okay if someone still says no there. But I think you have to be ready with the backup question, right? The backup question is, okay, so $50 doesn't work for you right now. Is there a way that you could support me in this campaign? And throw it back to that person, right? This is a conversation, right? It's not, okay, the call's over and we're hanging up, but how do we throw it back and continue the conversation with that person? Is there a smaller dollar amount that would be better for you? Could I call you back? Right? There are some of these other ways that you can work through. I want to keep you updated. If someone says no, all right, I totally understand now is not a good time. I'd love for you to continue to be engaged though. I'd love to keep you on my campaign list. Is it okay to shoot you an email every now and again and keep you updated, right? There's a way to continue to build that rapport and that relationship so that it exists outside of just that call or that meetup or whatever event you might be at. But I think you just have to be comfortable making sure you lay that foundation and then remembering or jotting down notes for whoever is there, right? Like remembering the other person and what they might be trying to have a conversation or what they care about. So you can remember it the next time you have a conversation.
Absolutely. Shannon, do we have any thoughts on that one before we pivot?
Nope, we can go ahead and pivot. She said everything.
Fantastic. All right. Can we expand? We kind of talked about this, but this is actually a different nuance. Can we expand on the ask for high dollar amounts versus an ask to attend an event? Shannon.
Ooh, I think it depends. They're not mutually exclusive. They're not like separate things, right? You can have an event that starts at $250, and I consider that a high dollar event, right? Because that goes up towards max out, right? Depending on the race. But then I think outright asking for my high dollar money is not something I do. I build a relationship before I ask for high dollar money, but I also structure my ask based on people's income and their giving history. So giving history is a big thing. You can pull things on Open Secrets. You can pull things on FEC report. Your local state will have fundraising reports you can pull, and you can see people's the way they give and how they give. If someone gives in, let's say May, then I know they are a late primary giver, depending on the state, or I know they're just not a primary giver at all. They give everything in the general, right? that's how I structure my ask. Also, I can see if someone gives small amounts continuously to get to the max out, then there's still a high dollar max out giver. They just give at their own pace, right? So that means, okay, I can invite them to an event. I know I can get maybe $20, $50 from there from one event. Then I can invite them to have a leadership strategy session. That could be another $50 they usually give me post that. And then I can see what they care about. Do they give to candidates who are pro-choice? Do they give to candidates who are Black? Do they give to candidates in the South? So they're okay with a hard race. I might have a hard race, so that might mean they're a target for me, right? I think all this information goes to structuring what an high dollar ask is. But also, Aisha mentioned it earlier, lean on organizations that have endorsed you. For example, we are endorsers of Tashara, right? And have been in the past. She's also one of the founding members of Higher Heights. So she's been with us from the rooter to the tutor, right? And we love her. And because of that, we know who she is, what she cares about, all the things. So I would look at our history and she can come to me and say, hey, Kathy is just constantly saying no to me. I can't get through Kathy, but I know we are aligned. I can now call Kathy and hit her up and say, hey, Kathy, I think I have a candidate for you might want to think about, right? Or Higher Heights is hosting an event for all the mayors that are on our list. You should come and meet them, right? And then she gets to meet Kathy through an event that is another touch outside of a campaign, right? Obviously, this is all within campaign finance laws, so I always like to give that disclaimer. But, I think you should think about ways you can bring someone in that's considered high dollar, but events and what's high dollar is different pertaining on every campaign, every race, every organization, everything changes. So
Mhm.
I would say what you consider, what your person considers high dollar is very different than what everyone else does. And that's okay. I consider Black dollars who give me $100 a high dollar donor for me because I know how in my house how that $100 could have been spent, and they chose to give it to me.
Absolutely. And I think one thing we have to remember, which is another conversation, is Black giving is still very new, right? As an establishment, Black donors are still finding their voice at this table. And they are also very much still figuring out the alignment in giving, if that makes perfect sense. So it's not a negative, it's a conversation that it's on us to continue having within our communities about how our dollars can be leveraged. Think
Well, it's
Target,
an educational thing.
right? When you start pulling your money out of one thing or investing your money into something, you can make change and big moves. So our next question, I'm sorry, Shannon, was there something else you wanted to add?
No, I was just adding that, yeah, it's an educational thing. Black people give philanthropically at some of the highest rates. Susus, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, PTA meetings, Camp Girl Scouts, all the things, right? Basketball. So just because we don't have a history of political giving at certain levels compared to other communities doesn't mean we can't get there. It's all about education and conversation, and there's no one size fit all. So you're correct.
Absolutely. So how do you think about asking folks for money when they're in the context, this kind of ties back in, when they may be financially struggling? So I think that may lean into like the small dollar giving, the in-kind contribution, or finding other ways that they can leverage their talents. What about you all? Aisha, did you hear that question? Just wanted to make sure.
Yes, I did. So
Okay.
sorry for the
What are your
technical
thoughts?
difficulties.
No worries.
So then because I said that, then I forgot the question that quickly. Could you
It's
share it
okay.
again,
That's no
Akilah?
worries.
Sorry. Thank you.
I said, how do you think about asking folks, or how do we ask money, or ask for money of folks that may not have the means or maybe financially struggling that still want to involve themselves? I was saying we've got in kind, we have leveraging their talents in other ways, and then creating small dollar giving, and finding, I guess a gift that can match them. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. I mean, I love using the texting programs, right? I will say I found it a little bit challenging. I actually now have a program where it goes back to my number, because then people are trying to have full-fledged conversations with me that know me. And they're like, oh, are you coming over for dinner? And I'm like, no, and I'm so sorry that I missed that, or I have the flu or whatever. So just managing that, though, goes back to consistent communication, making sure that I get on the platform to respond to folks, and just continue the conversation with them, and letting them know when they can't give, it's okay. When I did my DNC race, one of our church members said to my mother, oh, tell her I'm so sorry I can't give now, and letting them know that what they've given so far is really great, and that it's been helpful, and it's been encouraging. And I will also say that we can't also make assumptions about some folks. I did a community event, and we saw this woman on the street dressed pretty, really dressed down. And so we invited her to come back, and she ended up giving us a donation. And this wasn't even a fundraiser. She ended up giving us a donation for $100. So I think someone said to me, it's not so bad to ask people for more, right? And then they can tell you what they can give.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So we've got time for just a few more questions. So one person's asking a question I think that may come up in some communities that we definitely need to think about. And Michelle, I see your question. We're going to check in on that. I will make sure that it gets asked. Someone said, where does the money go? When you're giving to Act Blue and the Democratic Party and some of these bigger infrastructures to support candidates and causes, where's that money going? And how do we help, I guess, combat and just full disclaimer, there are laws surrounding all giving. So this money does not go to people. That is how you end up in stripes, and we don't do stripes, okay? So just full disclaimer there, but how do we help educate around where this money goes through the political tools that are available for contributions? And how do we help make sure that those funds are well managed, i.e. compliance? Rosetta, if you could take this question for us.
Yeah, happy to do so. So one of my other clients is the Missouri Democratic Party. I've been doing some fundraising off and on for them for the better part of 3 years. I think there's some miscommunication. I certainly have had conversations with donors where they feel like they're giving at the national level and they don't know how that money comes into a local entity or a local party. And so explaining campaign finance, you'd have to pull up a seat and maybe a blanket in order to jump into all the different facets that it is to understand those pieces. But I think the biggest thing that I have found myself explaining is actually around Act Blue. So Act Blue is a vendor, right? I would compare it to like a PayPal or a Venmo or Cash App or whatever else exists out there that I probably should be using but don't. Act Blue, what it does is a vehicle for candidates to collect money. The money does not go to Act Blue. Now, Act Blue has a fee, just like PayPal and some of these other vendors do. That's how they make their money, where they take 3%. But in return, what Act Blue does for all 50 states is they collect the compliance information that each campaign or each state is required to report. So I'm in Missouri. Act Blue collects the name, the first and last name, the address, the employer, occupation of the person who donated that gift. We're required to report that for compliance, every quarter here in the state of Missouri. They collect that for us. So it does make it easy for the campaign to be able to download everything and makes that a little bit nuanced. It also makes it very easy to quickly get the money turned around. But I think sometimes people think that they're giving to this organization, and that is not necessarily like Act Blue is collecting the money and they're running the campaigns. It's not the case. They're just a vendor, right? And when you're giving to a local party or you're giving to the DNC, each state might have an amount of money that is allotted for them to give, but the bulk of that, those states don't see, right? So giving individually to the campaigns is the best way to help the campaign get its message out. And I cannot stress this enough. If you are invested in a candidate, if you've heard them speak, if you like what they're doing in the community, then give directly to the campaign, because in their campaign bucket, they're able to pick up the literature that they might need. They're able to afford the mail that they might have to send out. This is expensive, right? Like, you have to give them the money so that they can run the plan that they have. And I also think it's imperative when we're talking to donors that we are talking about where the money is going, because there's some distrust, there's some inherent barriers that exist in our space when it comes to Black people and money and where it's going, and people have pause, right? So the way that we can break this ridiculous racist trend that exists in our space is to explain exactly where it's going and direct them to where campaign compliance is there. We have to report all these things. This is all public record. Most people don't know that. So I think the way that you can break up that disinformation and explain it is really just support the campaign and ask, the campaign should share where it's going to go, but also if you're a donor, like ask what you guys are trying to fund. What are you trying to spend on the campaign? That's a very appropriate question to ask.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Our final question, then our quick 30-second closing statements. So what does donor engagement look like beyond an election, win or lose? Shannon, I want you to think on that one. And then our final question is, how do we help candidates expand beyond their personal Rolodex and love lists if they don't have those in place? So Shannon, you first.
Win or lose, it looks like a thank you, first and foremost. It looks like a catch-up call. It looks like a thank you note. Handwritten notes go a long way. I know usually you can put it into your campaign budget towards the end, win or lose, right? It also looks like you figure out what's next for you and see what else aligns. We tell candidates all the time, like, what's your legacy after this? Like, what is your next steps? What do you want to run again? It looks like analysis. It looks like a deep dive into how things worked and what didn't work. Lots of debriefs, meet with your partners, discuss with them and how you needed them to do something more or you needed them to pull back less, right? Like after a race, a lot of analysis goes in, but also rest. I've seen a lot of Black women candidates burn themselves out, and you need to take a break. You need to take care of you. Losses are hard. We're seeing Kamala at basketball games and plays because she's taking care of her, and it's very, very important that you take care of you before you jump into your next thing, your next race, your next whatever it is. And then also thank your staff. You'd be surprised how many candidates don't thank their staff for all the work and time and blood, sweat, and tears. Create a platform in which we can transition staff into their next roles, offer recommendations, have conversations with them, figure out where they're going next. They will come back and work for you, or they will speak highly of you in rooms that you're not in. Be good to your staff afterwards. I know it's hard when you lose a race. It's even harder when you win a race because then you're off to the races and everyone's trying to figure out if they can come along with you. Just take your time and thank your staff, thank your donors, thank your people who volunteers, your super volunteers, anyone who hosted something for you, thank them. And then take your time and figure out what's next for you.
Absolutely. Michelle gave us a big thank you so much. And Michelle, don't worry, chin up. There are many other opportunities for you, so do not worry about that primary. There are other things on the horizon. Just plan, talk to your team, talk to your kitchen cabinet, and be encouraged, okay? All right, so that final question, oh, Lord, it got lost. Expanding beyond the Rolodex, can we get 30 seconds from Rosetta?
Yeah, for sure. I think expanding your Rolodex requires you to show up at places. Go be present. Pick a networking event that's happening in the community. Have your cards ready. Make it a goal to stand between the check-in table and wherever they're serving drinks and meet 5 new people and grab their cards and then follow up with those people immediately. If you want to meet more people and you want to expand more people, you got to go where people are. You have to stop waiting for them to come to you. And so you got to go do the work. So show up at a networking event and make it a goal to meet 5 new people and follow up and have a coffee or meet them one-on-one.
Absolutely. Thank you. So from you, wonderful, amazing women, can I get 30-second closing statements from each of you? We will start with Representative Dew.
So I'll say this now that I've been a candidate, sometimes my call time manager just needs to be a cheerleader. I can actually self-manage my call time. And so as long as I have all the tools set up, I just need to call somebody and be like, hey, I just need for you to be proud. I did 30 calls and then I can get back to it. So we have to love on our folks. We need it.
Absolutely. Shannon.
I would say be patient with yourself. It takes time to build. Raising money is a skill. Asking for money is a skill. It takes time. Be patient. You're going to get a lot of no's. Be easy on yourself. Be easy on your candidate. Be easy on the atmosphere that's happening. Do not do doomsday. It's the end of the world. Sky is falling fundraising. It doesn't work. It's not one thing. It does. There's no longevity in it. And just give everyone grace. as we are moving, especially in this economic time and especially in this political time. Just give everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And finally, Rosetta.
Yeah, I think my closing remarks is that everyone here has the capability of fundraising. Everyone here has the ability to support someone fundraising, has the ability to fundraise for something that they believe in. I think you just have to decide what the goals and the wins are. You get to decide that, right? I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do 1 hour of calls every day this week. And when I do that, like, I'm going to reward myself in whatever way, right? Maybe it's 20 minutes of Abbott Elementary at the end of the week or whatever it is for you. But I think you have to decide, you have to go in and have a good attitude. If you have a crappy attitude about fundraising, then it comes across that way. So you got to believe that other people are going to believe in you. And so that is the mindset and mentality that you have to be in. And just because you hear a no doesn't mean that it's a no forever.
Absolutely. Thank you. So in closing, you all are phenomenal. I can't believe this hour has moved so swiftly, but it is time for us to wrap this conversation. So thank you for each and every one of our amazing speakers. Representative Aisha Dew, Shannon Arthur, and Rosetta Okohson for sharing your wisdom, your experiences, and your expertise on building political bank, Black women in democratic fundraising. Let's please show them some love in the chat. Thank you to all of our attendees for joining us. And before we sign off, I have to ask a quick piece for all of you. Please just take 1 minute to fill out the brief survey and the evaluation form that Damon has already dropped in the chat. Your feedback is invaluable for this type of programming, so we can continue this forward to make sure it is the best we can possibly be bringing to you. And we want to make sure that we're improving. If you didn't get your question answered, or if something comes up later, don't worry. You can reach out to us at any time at live training at traindemocrats.org. And before you log off, make sure to create your free account at traindemocrats.org to access all of today's resources, plus so many other tools that you all can leverage on your journey. Stay connected with us on Twitter and Instagram at TrainDems, and be the first to hear about upcoming programs, training opportunities, and other forms of engagement. And thank you again, everyone. Have an amazing day, and let's please keep building phenomenal political power. It is now more necessary than any other time in our lives, and that is a fact. So thank you for being here.